We need to support the industry with great technology. That's important. Cast and crew, we always want to do that. We always strive to do that. But it's also remembering the human component of that too, right?
Welcome to part 2 of our Master Your Craft special. I'm Shannon Cruz, Product Marketing Manager at Cast and Crew. Today we're turning focus to Hours Plus and how new tools like Allowance Cap Tracker, Instant Deals, and Approval Workflow Builder are transforming payroll, timekeeping, and reporting. With smarter automation and real-time visibility, these updates help production stay efficient, compliant, and connected wherever they're shooting. Today, I'm joined by Alex Bair, Director of Product Solutions. Thanks again for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And Kody Schmidt, Product Manager for Hours Plus.
Hello.
Hi, Kody.
Thank you for having me.
Today, they'll walk us through the biggest Hours Plus updates and how these features impact production teams in the field. All right, you guys ready to dive in?
That's
Very much so. Very excited for this.
Okay, let's get started. What are the most impactful updates we'll see in Hours Plus this year?
I think I'm most excited for time card calculation override. From a workflow perspective, there's going to be times where you're breaking your time cards, you're calculating your time cards, and there's something that you need to do to that time card to be able to correct a calculation, fix a calculation, approve some sort of exceptional circumstance.
Production happens.
Production does happen, in fact.
Yeah.
And when production happens, our technology and our tools need to be ready for production to happen too, right? And so with time card calculation override, I think one of the great things about it is that if you have to get somebody paid and you need to be able to get somebody paid through the system and you want to be able to fix something, or you're saying, hey, there's some extenuating circumstances around this that I need to be able to pay even better than what is contractually required. Time card calculation override allows you to do that, and it allows you to do it at a pretty granular level down to the individual pay code. You can change the amounts that are being paid for any of these different scenarios that could come up. So it really puts a lot more flexibility in the hands of the payroll accountant while also taking advantage of the workflow tools and workflow components that Hours Plus offers that help to really connect that digital time card workflow for you. So for me, I feel like that's one of the biggest ticket items that I'm looking forward to. Kody, I don't know.
I mean, nail on the head. That is the thing I'm most excited about. Thinking about it from like an end to end, you can hire someone, like someone might negotiate a better holiday pay. They might negotiate better than what you're paying the rest of the crew. Great. You can, traditionally right now, you aren't able to actually pay that person in Hours Plus. You have to either pull them off of Hours Plus or send a message to your payroll coordinator and have them modify the time card for you.
Yeah, speaking of control and flexibility, I know another big feature that put control and flexibility in our accountant's hands was the approval workflows in Hours Plus. Can we touch on that a little bit?
Just to kind of set the stage. If your approval workflow needs to change in Hours Plus, you would have to draft an email, send it to your implementation team, someone would action it, and then finally, after X amount of time, you would see the update in the system. And then if you need to change it back, you do the same thing. I think the record for the most number of change requests was like 115 over the course of a single project.
Oh, wow.
Which is crazy. That means it's 115 emails being sent out, multiple responses back and forth.
I was going to say, that's 115 chains
You're
of
right.
email.
You're right, yes. Yeah,
Because none of those are just a single email either.
Best case scenario, you're probably looking at what, like 300 emails. So like, that's not the speed that production goes at, that production moves. So it puts control into accounting teams, into the production to figure out like, do we need to make a change? Who should be at this approval level? Instead of me drafting an email asking for the change and someone else pressing the buttons, let me press the buttons. And it's all just, it comes through immediately. It gets you approving your payroll faster.
I think what's great about the tool too is the fact that it's built with the idea of multiple different audiences in mind as far as that management goes too, because we recognize that we have a vast array of different clients, right? We have some clients who work in a more traditional kind of large studio setting where they have specific teams that are devoted toward managing certain components of that workflow or certain permissions, et cetera. They're involved at different parts of the process. But we also have clients who work in maybe more of an independent space, mini major space, et cetera, where they're working on a project that is working at velocity, right? You know, there's time is of the essence with that. So what we've done is, I think by breaking these into permissions, you're able to better allocate, hey, this is somebody who we're going to have on our production who's responsible for helping to drive these changes and to help support those changes, as opposed to somebody who maybe doesn't need to stay as focused on the workflow elements. They're just a contributor to that workflow. They shouldn't have to be bogged down with, let me get on the phone, let me send a request, let me get approvals, let me do. You don't need to do that. You can just get the person provisioned. You can set up your workflows how you need to. We want the tools to be able to support them in that and to be able to say, hey, I can just quickly add a different person to an approval flow where I've been at, or I can have flexibility to maybe, change up my approval flows this week from how they might typically be and then revert back the week after.
I know 2 other features that came out earlier this year that I would love for us to touch on is allowance cap tracking and instant deals.
I think cap tracking is a really cool one to start with. Because cap tracking traditionally has been something that a lot of accountants, even if you were using a time card calculation tool, as far as tracking the caps go, you may have some sense of that being tracked in the software, but unless you're using an integrated system, there's no validation that's necessarily happening with what's actually being paid to that person, right? So it's a very tedious process to say, hey, I'm going to track this in my analog system or my system that's not an integrated system, isn't part of a workflow here, and I'm going to hope that that's matching up with what I'm paying out, despite the fact that there might be those scenarios where on an edit I caught something and I had to add an allowance to something for somebody, or I realized somebody was getting overpaid on that edit, et cetera. There's all sorts of times where that would be a bad time in the process to notice that. So what we've done is not only have we moved that visibility into where a crew member has accrued toward their reimbursement cap for a specific box rental, mileage, et cetera, they're also seeing then in real time transparency throughout the workflow. So department heads, if permissioned, they're able to see how closely has somebody gotten to their cap. So that way they can have a more direct conversation with their crew member. A lot of the times the payroll accountant who's actually in charge of tracking and enforcing those isn't always the person who's having the conversation with the crew member, right? A lot of the times it's that
they would end up being the crew would come and say like, hey, how close am I to getting,
or how come I didn't get my allowance on my last check?
And I know it's like, oh, let me go check my Excel spreadsheet. Oh, well, let me go check that against the data that's in PSL. And that's a lot of places to go just to see like, well, did you hit your cap?
And if I'm a crew member too, on some level, I should have some sort of right to visibility just to know what have I been paid thus far toward this. And then also still, once again, though, keeping the flexibility, right?
Yes.
Cast and Crew's not saying that, hey, because you hit your cap, we're stopping you from being able to do this. You can't do it anymore. We're just saying, hey, somebody's getting close to their cap. And we're giving you a little bit of a warning too, I think, Kody. When you get a certain percentage of the way there is, it's like 80%?
80, I believe at 80%, it'll start flagging like, hey, this crew member is approaching their cap. You can do with that information what you want, but we're not going to stop you. You can still pay it out.
But a proactive approach.
Yeah. A lot of changes, really great changes for our users. I know there's some big news for our East Coast productions. Will you tell us more about that?
One change that we've made recently is for, I think it's 817 drivers.
Correct, yes.
They have, that. Right now, in a paper process, they would submit a time card for their straight time, their guarantee, and then if they have overtime, they would get on another time card and on another check. The other time card is because they want it on another check. We've simplified that. So now you can just enter the work hours and we will calculate the straight time. We will calculate overtime. We'll put that overtime on another check, but it's all one time card. So you don't have to worry about multiple approval flows. You don't have to track to make sure, did Joe the driver, did his overtime time card get approved, but not his straight time?
And this is one of the examples, too, where Hours Plus is making sure that the contract is still being executed to the contractual extent that that does need to be on 2 separate checks, but also keeping it flexible for the payroll accountant, right? You shouldn't have to click a million times to then facilitate that basic contractual requirement. I think some of the other areas that we're, looking at actively, right? Like looking at the different metric commuter codes in New York, for example, figuring out, hey, how can we streamline that? You're already giving us information about what work city you're in or where in New York you're working. How can we more intelligently, infer based on that where you might fall? And then as part of that, East Coast, we're seeing a lot of very attractive tax incentives on East Coast right now, right? Producers want to follow those tax incentives. They want to produce where it's valuable to produce, where they can get a good deal on producing and on making the excellent content that they make. And New York and New Jersey both in the last several years have introduced some incredible incentives in those areas. And as part, they're asking for, some improvements to how you're tracking and reporting on your crews and trying to encourage things like a diverse crew and encourage things like diversity reporting, et cetera. So I think the other great through line here is in keeping everything digital in Hours Plus, all of that data is going to live with all of the data that I also am transacting with cast and crew, right? Whether it's the deal level data, whether it's some cost data that I'm putting into PSL, et cetera. It's the fact that I'm keeping all of this in one place and I have a cohesive single place to track all of that, that's going to be a game changer as these tax incentives become more robust and are asking for more granular level of detail from productions or more granular tracking from productions. Mm-hmm. And the richness of that data is ultimately what's going to make for a successful claim to, make sure that you're getting all of that money back from the state, or depending on what the dynamics are with that particular incentive, that you're actually getting what you qualify for, which you should be getting. Go get your money,
Okay, so I know we've touched on individual updates for Hours Plus for 2025, but I want to zoom out for this next portion. So from a timekeeping and payroll perspective, what's the strategic vision behind Hours Plus 2025?
I think flexibility has been the main theme, to be entirely honest.
Self-service flexibility. Yeah. Giving you, you're an accountant, you're the master of your craft. You should be the master of your payroll, giving you the flexibility to actually do that, giving you control over what you're submitting to cast and crew. We want to be a partner to you and during your payroll process. We don't want to be like a mean nanny who's like, no, slap your hand, you can't do that. We want to enable productions to more efficiently do their payroll and get it to cast and crew and get it ultimately paid. And so whatever we can do to make the system less rigid and give you more control is what we've been focusing on this year.
Really bringing it back to the strategic vision for 2025. I'm such a huge fan of the flexibility, though. I mean, yes, I think the self-service part is important. I think depending on who you are, that, is something where you're either hey, I want to self-serve myself and I want to do that, or, hey, I want to rely on cast and crew to do the services that they've done for me in the past. And either way, I can have my cake and eat it too, right? I can leverage either of those options. But for me, it's that flexibility. It's that time when you're in the 11th hour or you've been staring at your payroll screen for 9-10 hours already that day. When you hit a roadblock before you can even begin, that's never a good feeling. It doesn't matter what kind of project you're working on, right? You don't even have to be doing payroll. To have a non-starter or to be in a situation where you feel like my hands are tied and there's nothing I can do, help. That's not a great feeling. And so I think the flexibility is kind of speaking to a greater human part of this of, we need to support the industry with great technology. That's important. We, cast and crew, we always want to do that. We always strive to do that, right? But it's also remembering the human component of that too, right? I'm an accountant, not an automaton. I still am a human at the end of the day. I still have needs. I still have a sense of autonomy, a sense of freedom that I need to be able to act with, an agency that I need to be able to act with as a professional in my craft. And I just love that we're shifting the perspective to say, hey, how do we enable you to be that master of your craft? How do we enable you to be the informed decision maker and then give you those tools to make that decision?
Yeah.
Right. Putting the user first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Great. How will these Hours Plus enhancements shape the next generation of production workflows?
I think this goes in a couple different directions, because I think if we're talking about next gen, we have to talk about AI, at least to a point, which I'm not going to derail this. I'm sure we're going to have a master your craft about AI. So I'll save part of my thoughts for that. But what I will say is that I think it's going to be more about how people use technology, right? I think there's a sense of these things working in concert with each other, in harmony with each other, right? Mm-hmm. This idea of I'm working with these tools, I'm hopefully getting better, higher quality information faster from these tools, more flexibly, and that is empowering me to then make a better product. I think AI is going to help in some of that as far as being able to look for potential problem areas or look for potential pain points or suggest different behaviors that might proactively help you accomplish what you're trying to do. Regardless of what level we're using AI, I think it's that sense of how are we helping you achieve a better decision faster? And then what are you doing with that, right?
I think also just thinking about what does this enable? If I'm effectively using technology, it enables you to put more of your energy into the product that you're making, like into the movie or the TV show that you're making. For instance, the cap tracker. If I'm a crew member and I'm like, how much have I earned towards my box rental cap? Well, let me go take time out of my day to go to the accounting office. Oh, this person isn't there. Let me see. Let me try to calculate it in my head. I'm taking time and mental resources to try to figure that out when I could be dedicating that to my job, to whatever it is that I'm on set to actually do. Not to say that I'm not doing that job, but there is just some amount of my mind that's now focused on this other thing that's not ultimately going to appear on the screen. And I think as we look to like what next gen productions look like with these integrated technologies, it's just that we should be better enabling production to function smoothly without so much mental bandwidth having to go towards payroll.
How do these enhancements help productions stay efficient and compliant internationally?
With an integration with Start Plus, we now support paying time cards for US-based crew who are working internationally. So we know that tax incentives are making it very alluring to shoot abroad. So with an integration with Start Plus, you can now hire those types of individuals in Start Plus. Once it comes to Hours Plus, we will pay per those union contract, those international agreements. So that way it's just all seamless. It's all in Hours Plus.
Yeah, I think the idea of, once again, having that sense of throughness, right? From, hey, I can set up this deal in Start Plus. I can send this to my crew member. I can have them complete it. And then I can go pick up the rest of the workflow and complete it in Hours Plus, right? I don't want to have to do things piecemeal or like I do part of it over here, part of it over there. I want it to feel like it's one experience. And I think we've really streamlined the data that we're getting from Start Plus and how it's feeding into Hours Plus to support those international deals. And hopefully for your crew member, it kind of just feels like any other deal that you would have in the system. It really shouldn't, just because you're going to work abroad doesn't mean your time card software, your time card should look vastly different, right? It should feel kind of the same for the most part. It's just where you're working is a little different.
I know when we were researching all of this, there was one accounting team that I talked to who was like, oh, I really want to use Hours Plus, and I still will put those international flat deal time cards through Hours Plus, but I have to then send an email to my coordinator and say, hey, can you please go modify this? That's still a lot of work for me to have to go and manually fix that. So by having and supporting this from end to end, like out the gate, you hired this person as an international flat and we're paying it correctly as an international flat. There's so much efficiency gain there. It goes from, let me draft an email or let me override this to, yep, this looks correct, approve.
So looking ahead to 2026 and without giving too much away, are there any upcoming features for Hours Plus that you're excited about?
I have so many. First one is this push towards a unified, like one login experience across all of what Cast and Crew offers. So it's not necessarily Hours Plus specific, so sorry for not answering directly on the nose. But right now what we know is if you can have it all in just one place, you are now able to just remain in that flow state much more easily. So I'm wildly excited as we are looking to like centralize our platform.
The big things that I'm really excited about are improved data sharing between the applications. Mm-hmm. That's super awesome. And also notifications.
Yeah.
I love the idea of like a call to action, right? Tell me what you need from me. What do you want from me, right? On some level. Such an important kind of component that if we're thinking about these applications in silos just for what they do, we are missing the forest through the trees to some level because we're not thinking about the workflow, right? As part of that platform upgrade, I think I'm really excited to say like, hey, tell us what you want to know about and help us help you, right? That is what I'm really excited about. The idea of it's all together, but it all sings together. It's all one song. It's not a whole bunch of instruments kind of making noise. Keep going back to the concert analogy.
Yeah.
I think it
were you
works.
a music theater major or something?
Something like that.
He was.
Yeah,
he was.
My degree is in musical theater.
Speaking of fun, these next set of questions are some fun questions to see how you actually work. A little behind the scenes moment, if you will.
Okay.
I don't know if we can show
it's
that
going to be a
on
little
camera.
scandalous.
I was going to say.
So Instant Deals makes it possible to move fast without missing a beat. Are you someone who loves to make quick decisions and keep things moving? Or do you like to pause and review every detail first?
I want to make a quick decision, but a lot of the time, if I can sleep on it, I will sleep on it kind of thing. But whatever the decision is that I wake up then that the next morning, I'm like, that's the decision, that's it, I'm locked in. I had time to think, let's go.
Yeah, I would say probably somewhere in the middle. What I would love to have is all the information I need to be able to make that quick decision I don't want to labor over something for too long, because then you're always going to find some reason like why this isn't the perfect decision. And it's like, well, we don't always need the perfect. We need the best that we can get.
And if you want to bring that back to instant deals so we can take it back there as a through line, I think one of the things that instant deals really is aiming to do is to give you that cohesion of information from your onboarding experience to your timekeeping experience, right? Previously, it's been kind of segmented by sequence. Certain steps had to be fulfilled in order to unlock information that we already knew. It makes more sense to say like, hey, let's be transparent about information. Let's share the information that's most pertinent when you need it. Because if you need it, odds are it's, something that's going to drive some other downstream impact. So how do we bring that full circle?
Yeah.
And that's about being prepared and making split decision makings. There we go.
Great. Giving users the power to create their own approval paths puts a lot of trust in a team. How do you like to collaborate when building new processes? Do you jump in with ideas or help others bring theirs to life?
I love to be the shepherd, watching other people be able to come up with ideas. I love to be able to guide folks where possible. And also I love to hear how people's thoughts processes are.
To be honest, the way that I like to approach a problem is first with humor. I had a professor in college who said, and this has stuck with me ever since, he was an acting teacher, and he saw a lot of actors who were taking it very seriously, and they would get dramatic scripts and they would deliver it just like so fighting from that Oscar nom with this performance kind of a thing. And one of the reminders that he gave was always opt for humor when you have the option, because people will be more open to what you have to say. And I firmly believe in that. I think a lot of the time humor is a very common human through line that we all share, with what we do.
It is shared experience. You laugh because it's like, oh, we shared this experience. We thought this one thing was going to happen, but the other thing did.
Yeah. Why?
And it's like, oh, now we're all on the same playing field. We all now have recognized that we have a commonality.
I think finding those opportunities to connect, finding those opportunities to remind that, especially in tech, where we can get very bogged down in the logic of it, right? What's logically the rules that need to all intersect together to make whatever happen? A lot of the time that's missing the point, though. If you become too tunnel vision on that, you're not actually thinking about what's the problem, what's the human element of this. And so I love starting there because I think it's a great way to kick things off.
With Hours Plus making it easier to stay within budget caps, what's one area you wouldn't mind breaking the limits, professionally or personally?
I will always overspend on clothes, particularly jackets. Not this one. This is just kind of like a set that I got.
It's nicer than any jacket that I own.
Well,
I don't even own a jacket yet, clearly.
Kody.
We weren't even going shopping. We just passed by a store. He saw a jacket and was like, this is a trench coat that I need. And I was like, why? Who buys it? Who impulse buys a trench coat? It was
in LA.
Well,
you true.
You don't know when you're going to need that trench coat. I don't know when I'm going to be in New York or to peddle my wares.
Kody, would you like to answer?
I love traveling. It's fun. I like to experience other cultures and see how other folks do things. And when I travel, it might just be a me thing, but I like to stay in nice hotels and eat nice food. So if I could break the budget on travel, give that to me every day.
All right. Last question. Hours Plus is all about making timekeeping easier. If you could add one feature to track something in your daily life, what would it be? And coffee intake counts.
I don't need to know how much coffee I've... In fact, please hide that number from me. I don't want to know. I shouldn't know. And also hide it from my doctor. What would I want to track? I have 2 cats. If you've worked with me or been on any calls with me, you've probably met them before, at least. Leonard and Banjo. Banjo is the newer addition to the family. He's a kitten. He just turned 1 a few months ago. And
how is Lenny as a big brother, by the way?
He's actually a very good big brother. Like, to an extent that I'll see him watch the kitten, like, go off and do something crazy. And he has, like, a certain tolerance level where he's like, this has gone on long enough. I'm now intervening, which I so appreciate. But I think so that way I wouldn't have to trust that he's doing that. I would want some way to track my little demon child just a little bit, just for when he gets into the things that are, like, breakable. That's when I have a problem, because there's been a couple times I've gotten home from work and there's just like, a vase on the floor, or what was a vase on the floor. So I think that's the one who I would track. If I was going to track anyone, it'd be that those little mischievous kitty activities that he gets into, that's what I would have to track.
Alex has 2 cats. I have 2 dogs. And I also have a 2-year-old, 2 and 2. I have oftentimes caught myself trying to like get my son to do something, and I will speak to him as if he is my dog. I'll be like, all right, let's go, boys. And then we'll immediately catch myself and be like, oh, wait, no, he's not a dog. I would love to know how many times I do that. I catch myself doing it, and I'm sure there are times that I do it without being aware of it. And I'm just curious, because also I don't want to raise my son like he's a dog.
We've covered a lot today, from smarter onboarding and approvals in Start Plus to global onboarding and automation in Hours Plus. Together, these platforms enable faster, more compliant, and connected productions. Before we wrap, we're going to shift from technology to talk about the craftsmanship and human side of innovation. With that in mind, what does it mean to you to be a master of your craft?
To me, it means you're able to effectively achieve a goal. It doesn't matter if it's creative in nature. It doesn't matter if it's more analytical. It is saying, I am at point A. I recognize I need to get to point B, and I can effectively navigate those channels. It means that you know what tools are at your disposal. You know when to use them. You know when not to use them. And just driving everything and everyone around you relevant to that goal towards that goal.
I think it's a matter of how you do things as opposed to what you do. And I think a lot of being a master at your craft is also the ability to inspire the people around you, you know, in your immediate vicinity, or the folks that are most closely associated with you, toward a common goal, toward a common vision, right? And on some level, yeah, if it isn't broke, don't fix it, right? But if there is the opportunity for potential, for improvement, for growth, then you never want to shut that down. You never want to turn yourself off from that opportunity either. You want to be able to remain open to it and reflective of it and honest with yourself and with your surrounding community of supporters about that, right? So it's always keeping in mind how you're doing what you do and being willing to level it up when you need to.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Shannon, you've asked us a lot of questions. I'm curious, what does it mean to you
to master your craft?
Put me on the seat. To be a master of your craft, I feel like it means to just trust in your best ability and give whatever you're working on 100%. I think that they could be a master of anything.
I love that.
Conviction. I love it.
Yeah.
And that's a wrap of part 2 of our 2025 Spotlight series. Today, we talked about how Hours Plus helps productions move faster, stay compliant, and stay connected from set to screen. Together with Start Plus, Hours Plus is shaping a more unified production management, and we're just getting started. Huge thanks to my guests Alex Bair and Kody Schmidt for joining us and sharing your amazing answers. And thank you for tuning in. Visit us at castandcrew.com and follow us on LinkedIn for the latest updates. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Master Your Craft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. I'm Shannon Cruz. See you next time.